You didn't choose the last thought that flashed across your mind. You received it. It arrived dressed as your own voice, carrying a logic that felt inevitable. This is the subtle art of manipulation, not crude mind control, but the quiet arrangement of options, frames, and incentives so that what serves someone else feels like it came from you. We imagine manipulation as a villain twisting a mustache in a dim room. In reality, it's a dashboard of levers hidden in plain sight. The placement of a button, the word chosen for a headline, the clock that turns your patience into urgency, the limited stock banner you've seen 1,000 times yet still feel in your gut. Most of it is legal. Much of it is praised as good design, smart strategy, or behavioral science. And because it rides on our natural shortcuts, our need for belonging, our fear of missing out, our bias toward the immediate, we rarely notice the steering until we're already parked where someone wanted us. At scale, this isn't just about buying shoes you don't need or doom scrolling past midnight. It shapes what a society believes is normal, desirable, and true. If attention is the currency of modern life, the richest institutions are those that can predict, package, and sell yours. They don't need to change your mind outright. They only need to set the menu and let you choose from it. You still feel free while moving along a carefully laid track. But this isn't a call to paranoia. It's a call to literacy. The same psychology that can be weaponized against you can be used by you to reclaim focus, reframe offers, renegotiate incentives, and build systems that serve your values instead of dissolving them. You don't have to become a hermit to be sovereign. You have to become a better architect of your environment than the people who would happily do it for you. In this video, we'll map the mechanics, how attention is captured, how narratives are framed, how defaults make decisions on your behalf. We'll tour the systems that deploy these tools at scale, from news cycles to social feeds to workplace dashboards that turn human effort into gamified compliance. We'll dig into the psychological roots that make us suggestible, not because we're weak, but because we're human. And then we'll assemble a counter toolkit, practical tests, habit scripts, and a personal sovereignty protocol you can run in real time. Freedom in the 21st century isn't the absence of constraints. It's choosing which constraints shape you. If you can see the strings, you can decide which ones to cut and which ones to pull. Ready to learn how society guides your choices without you noticing, and how to take the wheel back? Manipulation rarely argues with you. It arranges you. Here are the levers most often pulled and why they work on brains like ours. The first lever of manipulation is attention. Before anyone can influence your decisions, they must secure your gaze. Modern systems achieve this not by shouting louder, but by designing loops that feel endless, feeds that refresh themselves, videos that autoplay, notifications glowing red like tiny alarms. Your brain, wired for novelty and reward, becomes a passenger in a slot machine of information. You think you're browsing freely, but your sense of time erodes. The longer you linger, the deeper the hooks sink. Once they have your eyes, the next step is framing, deciding not just what you see, but how you see it. Numbers can be dressed in reassuring clothes, 90% fat-free, or threatening ones, contains 10% fat. News stories tilt reality with word choice, turning one group into heroes and another into villains before you've even formed your own opinion. You don't just inherit the information, you inherit the lens, and soon you're debating inside boundaries you never chose. But persuasion doesn't end at words. It moves into incentives, the quiet architecture that bends behavior. We like to believe people act according to principle, but in practice, they follow the scoreboard. When clicks, likes, or sales become the currency, creativity warps to chase those numbers. Metrics designed to measure success end up replacing it. The game becomes getting the highest score, even if it means undermining the very purpose the metric was meant to serve. And then there are the choices you never consciously make. Defaults. They sound harmless, even neutral, yet they guide entire populations. A box left pre-checked, an app already installed, a subscription set to auto-renew. Most people don't change what's presented to them. Inertia feels safe. That's why companies fight so hard to be the default search engine, the default payment app, the default news source. It's not a battle for preference, it's a battle for passivity. Scarcity taps into something deeper, our fear of missing out. A countdown clock on a product page, the only two left tag, the velvet rope around exclusive content. Scarcity short-circuits reflection. You don't pause to ask, do I actually want this? You just react to the possibility of losing it. The pressure of limited time or limited access can make even the ordinary appear precious. But if scarcity preys on your fear of loss, social proof leans on your hunger for belonging. 5-star reviews, most popular badges, viral trends, these reassure you that others have already done the vetting. If the crowd approves, it must be safe, maybe even desirable. Yet the crowd can be manipulated too, through fake reviews, inflated numbers, bots that simulate popularity. What you're really seeing is less a mirror of reality than a carefully managed stage. Finally, there's outrage, the accelerant of the modern attention economy. Outrage isn't accidental, it's engineered. Platforms know that anger keeps you scrolling, sharing, commenting. The righteous heat of moral indignation feels like clarity, but it clouds judgment and splinters communities. Outrage convinces you you're acting, even as you sit still, feeding energy back into the machine. Each of these levers works differently, but they share one trait. They steer you without demanding resistance. The strings aren't pulled with force. They're threaded through your instincts, biases, and shortcuts. And the more invisible they are, the more effective they become. It's one thing to see these levers in theory, it's another to notice how entire systems are built upon them. The most obvious case is the media. News outlets don't simply report, they frame. Headlines compress reality into emotional cues, often selecting stories not for their importance, but for their ability to hold your gaze. Outrage cycles, scandal-driven narratives, and fear-based reporting are less about informing and more about retaining attention. You believe you're choosing what to read, but in truth, the news is choosing what you should feel. Social platforms go even further. They are laboratories of attention capture, with algorithms fine-tuned to exploit your psychology. Every swipe on a feed is a wager, every notification a small siren. Scarcity appears in the form of vanishing stories and limited-time posts, while social proof is baked into every metric, likes, shares, followers, turning human worth into a public scoreboard. Here, manipulation is the product. You aren't just scrolling. You are being trained, nudged, and predicted. Politics, too, has learned the subtle art of steering perception. Campaigns rarely try to change a person's entire worldview. Instead, they set the defaults, the language of the debate, the categories you can choose from, the villains and heroes pre-selected for you. Law and order frames one issue. Personal freedom frames another. Both describe the same territory, but each narrows the range of what feels acceptable. Once framed, outrage becomes the engine. Entire populations can be moved, not by policy detail, but by the adrenaline of being on the right side. Advertising is perhaps the oldest and most refined version of this craft. Every placement, every slogan, every design choice is a psychological gambit. A limited-time sale presses scarcity. Testimonials create social proof. Default options slip your wallet open before you realize it. And incentives, points, rewards, loyalty programs keep you tethered to the cycle. The goal isn't simply to sell you something, it's to shape your desires so that buying feels like your own idea. Even workplaces, environments we imagine as neutral and professional, are steeped in manipulation. Dashboards and performance reviews rely on metrics that often distort more than they measure. Incentives reward compliance over creativity. Framing turns cost-cutting into efficiency, layoffs into strategic adjustments. The architecture of the office, open plans, endless meetings, digital trackers, guides behavior toward predictability and output. Employees may believe they're choosing how to work, but the system is already nudging every action toward a predefined outcome. And then there are the so-called benevolent nudges, government or corporate programs framed as helping you make better choices. Retirement plans with auto-enrollment, calorie counts on menus, or default green energy providers. On the surface, they're designed for your benefit, yet they still highlight the power of defaults, scarcity, and framing to steer vast populations. The line between guidance and manipulation blurs. Whether it's called a nudge or a trick depends on who benefits most. Across these domains, the pattern repeats. The levers of manipulation are scaled into infrastructures. You don't notice the water when you're swimming in it, but every current has a direction, and rarely is it toward your freedom. If the machinery of society runs on manipulation, the fuel it burns is human psychology. These levers work not because we are weak, but because our minds were shaped in environments very different from the ones we now inhabit. What once kept us alive in small tribes now makes us pliable in vast engineered systems. At the foundation are cognitive biases, the shortcuts the brain uses to conserve energy. Confirmation bias makes us cling to what we already believe, so a cleverly framed story doesn't have to prove itself. It only has to echo what feels familiar. The anchoring effect causes us to take the first number we see, whether it's a sale price, a poll result, or a suggested tip, and unconsciously orbit around it. These shortcuts save time, but they also make us predictable, which means they make us targetable. Layered on top of bias is status anxiety, the quiet pulse of comparison that hums in every human group. For our ancestors, being excluded from the tribe was dangerous. Today, it's likes, shares, and follower counts that signal belonging. When social proof tells us what's popular, we listen because popularity feels like safety. When outrage invites us to declare loyalty, we respond because silence feels like exile. The herd is no longer just around the campfire, it's global, quantified, and relentless. Tribal identity compounds the effect. We aren't just individuals making rational decisions. We are members of imagined communities, political parties, fan bases, professional groups, nations. Once we declare allegiance, manipulation has a direct line to our emotions. Outrage aimed at the other side feels energizing. Praise for our group feels affirming. To doubt the narrative isn't just to question an idea, it feels like betraying our people. This is why framing is so powerful. It doesn't just tell us what to think, it tells us who we are if we think it. Another route is learned helplessness, the quiet training that tells us resistance is futile. When defaults steer us without friction, when systems feel too large to challenge, we adapt by lowering our expectations of control. We tell ourselves small stories. Everyone does it. What can I do? That make compliance feel like realism. The more invisible the manipulation, the more helpless we feel, and the cycle tightens. And beneath it all, there's the lure of intermittent rewards. Casinos perfected it, social media industrialized it. A slot machine pays out unpredictably, and that very unpredictability keeps you hooked. Platforms use the same principle. Not every scroll gives you joy, but sometimes it does, and the brain can't resist the maybe. Manipulation doesn't need to capture your loyalty outright. It just needs to capture your anticipation. These roots show that manipulation isn't alien. It's native. It doesn't override our psychology, it rides it. Which means that escaping it isn't about becoming superhuman or immune. It's about recognizing that the same instincts that once kept us alive are now the very ones being leveraged to keep us compliant, distracted, and predictable. Awareness alone isn't enough. Knowing the strings are there doesn't cut them. It only shows you where they are tied. To resist subtle manipulation, you need countermeasures, small deliberate acts that restore agency. Not paranoia, but literacy. Not withdrawal, but sovereignty. The first countermove is detection. Begin by asking, why do I feel this? If you sense urgency, look for a timer or scarcity ploy. If you feel outrage, ask who benefits from your anger. If you catch yourself echoing language, pause and ask, whose frame am I inside right now? Naming the lever disarms its power. A trick exposed is a trick weakened. The second is reframing. Instead of accepting the menu handed to you, redraw the menu yourself. Defaults lose their grip when you reset them consciously, switching browsers, altering notifications, unsubscribing from auto-renewals. Even in conversation, refusing to argue within a rigged frame reclaims the terms. You don't have to play the game laid out for you, you can invent a new one. Third, redesign your incentives. If metrics hijack behavior, then craft your own scoreboard. Track depth instead of clicks. Time spent creating instead of time spent scrolling. Meaningful connections instead of follower counts. When you choose the measure, you choose the meaning. Otherwise, the meaning will be chosen for you. The fourth countermove is building habit scripts. Small, repeatable defenses against engineered nudges. Delay before purchase. Breathe before clicking. Question before sharing. These aren't grand gestures. They are micro-interrupts that keep manipulation from riding unchecked on your impulses. Each pause is a tiny act of rebellion, proof that you're still steering. And finally, cultivate what could be called a sovereignty protocol, a personal environment that serves your values instead of dissolving them. Curate your feeds, limit your notifications, design your workspace for focus rather than surveillance. Surround yourself with reminders of what you want to move toward, not what someone else wants to sell you. The point isn't to escape influence, that's impossible, but to become the chief architect of your own constraints. Freedom in the modern world isn't the absence of manipulation. It's the ability to see it, name it, and redirect it. The same psychology that can be used against you can also be harnessed for you. The strings will always be there. The question is, are they pulling you or are you pulling them?